I think I've experienced racism on multiple spheres and platforms.
This person was basically just speaking about how there will always be division between white and black.
So I wasn't really exposed to a lot of like cultural diversity, I wouldn't say.
There was a group of white boys who then attended school dressed in Buddha outfits, and they had the apartheid flag on their wrists. And I cannot make this up. I swear I cannot make this up.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Bokang, and today's video I asked a few of my friends to join me in an open and honest conversation about race and racism in South Africa. Now, it's not an easy conversation, but it is a necessary one. I mean, it's also not something that we've, I think, freely and openly spoken about before, but in my opinion, that's really part of the problem and why we are where we are today. Just thinking of everything that's happening in the world with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's really given us an opportunity to not only reflect, but to open a dialogue about the realities of racism in our world. So I ask in this video that you guys listen, you hopefully learn. Feel free to engage and to partake in the conversation in the comments, but obviously in a kind and respectful manner. And yeah, hopefully this inspires you to continue the conversation in your homes and in your communities, online and offline. So yeah, let's get started. So I want to start with upbringing, because firstly, our upbringing really does play such a big part in shaping the person that we become and how we relate to other people. But also, I think, growing up in a post-apartheid South Africa, the expectation would be, as the Rainbow Nation, we are this fully integrated society where racism is fully eradicated. And I'm just really interested in what the reality of your world was. What did that look like? Did you grow up in a more multicultural setting, or was it more of a place where everyone looked like you?
Okay, first of all, I think what we need to say as an interracial couple is that we have contrasting upbringings, right?
Yeah,
I moved here as a Xhosa kid, not knowing how to speak Spitori. I still don't know how to speak Spitori, but I understand now, I understand. So when I was in grade 1, I was challenged because the black kids wouldn't accept me because I couldn't speak their language. So I found myself hanging out with more white friends. My best friends were white in my schooling, and I never had a problem with that. I never felt discriminated against in primary school especially. But yeah, over the years, when you look back, you get to realize certain discrimination based on your race.
Definitely not multicultural. Sorry about that. But like Afrikaans primary school, Afrikaans high school, I was in an Afrikaans church until like middle of matric. I mean, I didn't go to church that much, but again, filled with people that looked like me. Yeah, like that cliche thing, I had a couple of black friends, but like at the end of the day, those were people that kind of had similar upbringings to myself even, so I wasn't really exposed to a lot of like cultural diversity, I wouldn't say. I was used to sort of being in an echo chamber of people that looked like me and sounded like me and had similar views about certain things as myself.
I grew up in a multicultural type of environment. Like compared to my siblings who are older than me, my brother's like 4 years older than me, my sister's 10 years older than me. By the time I came, things were looking better for my parents, so they could afford better opportunities for us. So from the get-go for me, from pre-primary, I was going to school with predominantly white kids. And in that setting, obviously, when you're that young, you don't really realize anything because you're still like naive, and you think that maybe some things are happening just because that person is mean or whatever.
My upbringing was completely different to Simpie. I grew up in a small town called Darling, on the west coast of Western Cape, where everyone looked like me. Everyone spoke Afrikaans, nobody spoke English, and it was just such a sheltered way of upbringing. We heard about apartheid and the reality of why there is a train track between where we live and where another race lives. And it's still like that, but we didn't really see it as anything, you know?
I went to a primary school that was like an English primary school, so yeah, there were, and not just like white and black, like Indian and colored kids as well. And what's cool about that is, okay, we were very few in a grade. We were like 50 kids in a grade, so there was really no opportunity for kids to, you know, I don't know, break up into groups. So I think that I don't want to say desensitized me, but just kind of really helped, you know, the developing person realize that what you have in common with someone or your ability to be friends or whatnot doesn't depend on your cultures, which are different.
I've always had a colorful world, but like you said, the expectation would be that since I am a born free, that, I don't know, there aren't as many racial prejudices, etc. And that's the complete opposite. I've always, as a black person, I believe that we've always had to fight to find common ground or to find right standing, compared to a white person or compared to a light-skinned person, more especially being a dark-skinned black girl. We've always had to sort of fight to be recognized, to be acknowledged. So that's something I've always had to deal with.
Yeah, over the years, when you look back, you get to realize certain discrimination based on your race. But me being black, I never felt like I was less off. But like I said, looking back now, I'm like, oh, okay. When this happened, it was because I was black. It wasn't any other reason. But I never felt that my race was a disadvantage. But certain things did happen.
Then let's move on to those certain things. My next question is, can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences with racism growing up, maybe now, and just in all the different spheres in life? Maybe how you were on the receiving end of racism, or how you had witnessed it, or maybe even been an unwilling participant in racism. Yeah, can you share with us maybe a couple of your experiences?
It's actually so like crazy that you bring this up, because I feel like the more you educate yourself and you surround yourself with different people and you read stuff about the topic, the more you kind of like look back at certain things in your childhood and you're like, oh my goodness, how was that okay?
I remember once we moved to Cape Town, there was this white girl in my neighborhood. Cool, we become friends, we like walk around, go to the pond and like feed ducks together, lame things like that. And then one day she looks at me, she's like, you know, Lulu, I really like you. Like, you're not the same. I'm like, the same as who? She's like, the other ones, like the darker ones. I was like, what do you mean? My father's dark skinned, my brother's dark skinned. You come into my home. So does that mean you don't feel safe? When you're in my home, you're thinking you're around like monsters. She was like, no, I just like you because you're lighter and like, you know, I feel safe around you. And I was like, I cannot be friends with her. By the way, she brought lice into my house. So she was the monster, not dark-skinned people.
I think I've experienced racism on multiple spheres and platforms. So in school, in university, in the workplace, in church, in sports, like all spheres of life. With regards to my friends and all of that, the older we became, the more you see how your upbringing really influences who you ultimately become. Because just because my white friends were different in primary school, in high school I got to see these racist tendencies when I look back now. My name is Simpiwe. They used to call me names like Kwezi. Like, where does that come from, you know? Like, you know, that's like, it's a mess. Like, it's a mess. I'm a confident person. I'm a loud person, you know, and because I'm confident and loud, they would say, you blacks are so loud, you know, like, you feel that, and I'm sure a lot of people have felt that. And the sad thing is we've compromised, we've tolerated it, and we haven't called it what it is. And that's what's brought us to where we are, because nobody wants to have the conversation because it's uncomfortable. But what I feel is valid, and if I don't talk about what I feel, I will never be able to deal and move on.
One thing that really stood out to me is there was this kid, right? And this was like grade R. So I was like 5 years old, 5, 6 years old. There was this kid, Johannes, right? So his mother was like a custodian of the school, right? So she was employed by the school, African kid. And they lived on the school premises, right? And like, it was the craziest thing. All the teachers and the kids always just referred to him as like Sinki, right? Which is literally just translated like boy. Like, and he had a name, obviously, but it was just like the most normal thing. Like the teachers called him Sinki. Like I was like 10 years old. I was like in 4th grade when he was like, you know, like my name is like actually Johannes, right? Like, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's insane.
Oh, so everyone
right?
just kind of thought his name was Sinki. Oh, hectic.
Dude, can you believe it, right? Like, that's crazy. And that was just like a thing that was like super duper normal, you know?
I have been very blessed to have attended a private high school, but I didn't know that attending a private school would require me to adjust to so much racial discrimination. I personally have not experienced like overt racism. However, it was in high school where I had to like fight to be seen as a black person, like I did mention earlier. It was an issue when I decided to grow my afro in high school, because in our school diary, the rule was no afros allowed.
What?
Girl, it was insane, you know, like for people to blatantly state that your natural state of hair is not allowed is not what, I mean, I remember when I was having a conversation with a teacher about this, and she compared relaxed hair to having a Brazilian blowout. And I sat there and I was like, at least give me the choice, because you have the choice to get a Brazilian blowout. No one's forcing you to get a Brazilian blowout because your hair is unruly, your hair is unprofessional, you know, because that is the stereotype, that black natural hair is unprofessional.
So I'm thinking back to, I remember in my honors year, I had a really passionate conversation with a friend of a family friend, and this person was basically just speaking about how there will always be division between white and black, and like how, and like just a lot of racial kind of stereotypes, speaking about black people as if every single black person is the same, but also saying things that like, okay, you're saying black people are uneducated, but you're not willing to talk about how apartheid was literally a strategic, political, systemic, like, ideology intent on making sure that people don't have quality education. And I think that's a danger of a stereotype. Chimamanda Adichie said that the danger of stereotypes is people weaponize a grain of truth to make that the only truth. So if you're saying something about an entire group of people, regardless of the fact that there are different classes, and just, you're saying something where there is a little bit of truth in, but then you're not willing to talk about, yes, but that's not because of who black people are, that's because of our history. But then I remember the conversation closed with me telling her that you're right, there are two kinds of people in South Africa. People who are racist and want to divide us, and those of us who want to find out how we can actively work against that. But it's just not the two kinds of groups of people that like you're talking about, if that makes sense.
The reality is that we don't fight racism as the same as the generation before us.
Yeah.
And it's so much harder to fight subtle racism. We had an experience recently in our class where somebody made racial remarks, and I completely lost my mind in that moment.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, I completely lost my mind. And it became a matter, and it went up to the dean and everything. But the reality of that is people didn't stand up for it that wasn't of color. They didn't see the problem there. And if we continue to enable people in behavior, we allow them to not see the problem in that. And you can't be ignorant and take responsibility. It's either or. It's either or the one, you know. But when you're aware, you have to take responsibility of it.
Also, one quick one. My grandmother lived with us for a while, and I remember one day, this memory will never leave my mind, where the intercom started ringing. And then she looked outside her window and she was like, don't go and answer it. And she was scared. I was like, why are you scared? Like, let me just go answer and I don't have to be there physically. She's like, no, it's a white man. What if he's here to hurt us or whatever? She still had that trauma of white men, just whenever they're around, there's trouble or there's physical harm or any type of harm, you know? So, I was just like, from that moment, I was just like, I get the mistrust that Black people have towards white people. And it's like a generational thing that's passed down, like the traumas.
It was also in high school when there was a group of white boys who then attended school dressed in Boer outfits, and they had the apartheid flag on their wrists. And I cannot make this up. I swear I cannot make this up. And they got off with just a warning. I mean, I don't know if you can remember when there was a whole uprising at Pretoria Girls High with the girl who just had issues with her hair. I mean, we decided, as me and my Black friends decided, you know, well, let me rather say my Black girlfriends decided that we're going to stand up for this because we experienced the same thing in our school. And when we decided to stand up and speak out, we were seen as being disrespectful, not wanting to comply with school rules. But here you are, and we almost got disciplinary hearings. We were all called into the principal's office like it was a whole thing. But when someone comes to school with the apartheid flag on their wrist, I'm just like, no, just don't do it.
Exactly. I cannot even fathom the fact that it was written in your code of conduct that afros are not allowed. Now you come into school wearing the apartheid flag and it's just a warning. Guys, this is why it's like the institutions also uphold racism. This is what they talk about when we talk about institutionalized racism, how it's systematic, you know? My goodness. Woo, girl. And that is so disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. And that is also why, you know, this movement and these conversations is so relevant and why we need to change. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Any quote-unquote last words?
I don't have anything else to say.
You know what? This is for South Africans. We really live in a state of complete delusion. It would be nice to live in the Rainbow Nation and for everyone to hold hands and for no one to see color and for all of us to sing Kumbaya around the campfire, but that is not the reality of things. I think really confronting issues in this country is going to get us so far. I think this country has so much potential, but then there's so many deep-seated and ugly and evil things that also this country is built on.
I think a lot of sort of like, I don't know, racist comments, things like that from like my fellow white people are very much based in like ignorance and not having spoken to other people about the issue. So I definitely think it's super duper, like it's crucial. I think that's the only way that we can educate people about this matter, is having conversations with people that don't look like you and people that have had different upbringings than you have had.
I think growing up as like a white person, I think you see a lot of like, the goal is to not be a racist. Like I'm not racist. Like I need to explain to you why I'm not racist. So if I talk about race, because a lot of you know, white people who do understand how terrible apartheid is and who really like have their heart in the right place are so scared of saying the wrong thing or saying something unkind unintentionally, that it's like the goal is to just, you know, like not be a racist. But like not being a racist isn't the goal today anymore. Like that's not a goal. Like that's really the bare minimum, is to not be racist. We need to together work actively against it.
I've experienced it on multiple spheres. I can talk about it in many spheres of life. But what I'm saying right now is that I'm no longer tolerating it, and that's what lockdown has done for me, and that's what Black Lives Matter is all about. My life matters, your life matters, but we've got to talk about the pain and injustice that I felt and that many other black people have been made to feel, because they've been made to feel inferior.
Yeah.
Yeah.